It's begun. Worst inflation shock. Here's where silver jumps. Gas prices are set to go up. The price of car repairs are going up. Insurance is set to skyrocket. And now we're being told that cars are losing 30 to 50% of their value. This is where our economy is headed. And with the boost in gold price we've seen, here's where silver is set to jump. Now, according to Newsweek tells us that Americans can no longer afford their cars. Right? I mean that this is coming from Newsweek. For decades, car ownership has been a trademark of the American lifestyle and really a status symbol of adulthood, of feeling like you've made it. You own your own car. It's a symbol of freedom, independence, and it's a necessity, really. But in 2024, the country's legendary love story with the automobile, this is according to Newsweek, it appears to have reached a crucial point of potentially no return as cars have become unaffordable to millions of people. This is not entirely a surprise with what we've been living through over these years of inflation. Life has generally gotten more expensive in the aftermath of the pandemic, including the cost of cars, car insurance, and car repairs. Both new and used car prices rose to record highs during the pandemic. We all remember that. Car industry was experiencing supply chain disruptions and chip shortages. Since 2020, new car prices have risen by 30%. 30%. That hurts. Cars are a great example of the expenses that we are seeing in our everyday life, and those expenses that are continuing to rise, even though mainstream media tells us that inflation is under control and we're getting ready to lower interest rates. We hear all that. But as we see with an automobile being out of the reach of many Americans, this is why we go in on precious metals. This is a perfect example of why I feel we need to put our wealth in silver, and if we can afford it soon, and not right now, but when we can, gold. This is just a great example. So, and Newsweek says that in 2023, a year during which inflation slowed down a bit to the point that the Federal Reserve decided to stop hiking rates, new car prices still rose by 1% to an average of $50,000, while used car prices fell by only 2% to an average of $31,000. But as things stand, cars are still really expensive for many Americans. Just 10% of new car listings are currently priced below $30,000. That's just 10% are priced below that $30,000 mark. And CNBC echoes this in an article telling us that car repairs are getting more expensive. CNBC says that cars are getting more expensive, and here's why. They say, your eyes aren't fooling you. Your car repair bill really is getting more expensive. Several factors are pushing costs up. Heavier, more complex vehicles, new materials and manufacturing methods, a worsening dearth of talented technicians, and pandemic-induced supply shortages. Customers definitely are getting sticker shock, says David Goldsmith, who owns Urban Classics, a repair shop in Brooklyn. And now, repair costs are rising relatively to the overall rate of inflation. Motor vehicle maintenance and repair costs increased 4% per year from November 2023 till today. This increase has been especially sharp since the pandemic, and prior to it, repair costs increased at an annual rate of somewhere around 3.5%. So these are all increases that we see. These are all payments that we are supposed to get accustomed to. We're supposed to just swallow this and accept that prices go up, our dollar weakens, and we're just supposed to chug along and accept this. Well, I see all of this going on in our economy as the examples of why metals are the way to go. And I'm still buying up silver. I'm still stacking silver. It is taking its typical lag behind gold, and it is certainly set up for a big jump. Even if we look back at the last time gold had a spike, when it first broke into the $1,000 level, when gold hit that, silver did not jump right away. It didn't. But it eventually did follow. Shortly after that, it did follow. And that's exactly what I see. That's exactly what I see coming down. Now, the part that tells us that silver is ready to jump is really these inflationary costs. Capital One shows us that high loan-to-value loans are problematic. And this is an article by Capital One, and they say that their quick takeaway is to know how to calculate your loan-to-value ratios when dealing. This is dealing with cars again, because I feel like the car it's not exactly your gallon of milk, right? We cannot fully assess inflation by that $6, $7, almost $8 gallon of milk by looking at a car. But a car is something that most of us rely upon. Anyway, Capital One says more and more car buyers across the U.S. are grappling with high loan-to-value ratios on their auto loans for both new and used car purchases. LTV, it's called LTV ratios, are key indicators of potential risk that auto loans pose to both borrowers and lenders, including risks associated with negative equity. And as I started this video stating that car values are decreasing 30 to 50%, that's your negative equity. A car cannot be looked at, although we want to look at it as a home, something that we purchase and we get some return on. We don't. Cars historically do not work in that sense. A negative equity results when your car's value is less than the amount owed on the loan. If your LTV ratio goes above 100%, you risk possibly owing your lender more than what your car is worth. A recent study from TransUnion and J.D. Power shows a growing trend of high loan-to-value ratio auto loans, making it important for car buyers to understand what this ratio means and why elevated ratios could be problematic. So when we see that the value of automobiles are decreasing by 30 to 50%, and these loan-to-value ratios are drastically increasing, it makes sense when we also hear that it's been said, I don't know if you've heard this, but this is truly the shocking part about inflation and our crazy cost of living. According to Business Insider, this really has my jaw dropping. According to Business Insider, only 20% of Americans will own cars by 2032 is the year. 20% of Americans will own cars. This is a new study. This came out. This is by Business Insider. By 2032, nearly no one in the U.S. may own a personal car, they say. Instead, most Americans will hail self-driving or electric ride shares to get around. Now, this has been tried recently in San Francisco, the driverless cars, and they recently actually put a stop to it because there were just so many accidents. For our community of silver stackers, we all long for a time when things just seemed simpler, right? I mean, things just seem simpler. And for me to talk here about the rising costs of everything, the rising costs of cars, and now to look and see that there's driverless cars that are so dangerous that I had to pull them off the road. Along with that, 80% of Americans will not even be driving in the coming years, right? This is a shift that most of us are not comfortable with, and I don't think it's a generational thing. I don't. I think that most of us in this community of silver stackers that we like to hold our wealth in our hands. That's why we turn to silver and we turn to gold. But along with that, we like to have that familiarity. We like to have a familiar life that we are accustomed to. And that comes with that feeling that we have that we just want everything to stop and start making sense the way it should make sense. So let me get back to this study. Look, this is Business Insider again. They say that private car ownership will drop 80% by 2032 in the U.S. They say the number of passenger vehicles on American roads will go from, listen to this, the number of passenger vehicles on American roads will go from 247 million in 2020 to 44 million in 2032. That is a huge drop. Using electric ride shares will be 4 times cheaper per mile than buying a new car. That's what they foresee coming. Let me say that again. Using electric ride shares, so it's like taking Uber or a Lyft in an electric vehicle, will be 4 to 10 times cheaper per mile than buying a new car by 2032. And that could save a family up to $5,600 per year. So instead of owning a car, you would be relying on Uber and Lyft. Again, these are all changes coming down the pike that show our dollar continues to weaken. The value of what we're getting, specifically in this conversation looking at cars, the value is decreasing, and that's why I am still all in on metals, and I'm confident in buying up silver as the price continues to hover between $23, $25 an ounce. I feel like that's going to end soon, and I know that as gold remains strong, silver absolutely will continue to follow.